thank you, everybody. First of all, I just want to say thank you to Dawn for the invitation to participate in this guest speaker series. It is a big pleasure to be able to be here to share with the homeschoolers today, including the parents, on what I do for a living. I also want to say thank you to Sabrina for the very warm introduction. I appreciate the fact that some of the words here and all are quite foreign, and well, she's also trying to decode it, just as most of us are. What I hope to do in the next hour or so is to take the opportunity to share with you my experiences. There's nothing classified in here, and I'll be most happy to share with you what I've learned, the journey I've taken, as well as answer any questions that you might have. Okay, so I was asked by Dawn to explain what I do for a living. Well, basically, I'm a military officer and I currently am serving in a military intelligence outfit. But I do realize that the word military intelligence can be quite big and quite difficult to understand. So I wanted to put it in a way that is easy for everyone here to understand. First of all, I just want to tell everybody, if you think I'm going a bit too fast, just let me know. I can slow down and take my time to explain or even speak more slowly. Now, first of all, military intelligence is about information. It is about getting information. It is about evaluating each piece of information that we get, and then to understand the information against what we already know. And this is for the purpose of figuring out what an adversary or possible adversary or even opponent is up to next. There are many examples of intelligence outside the military context where I work. This includes football. So, for example, if you are playing a team the next week in your next match, you might want to figure out what sort of tactics they are going to use, what formation they're going to line up in. It includes examples such as chess, whether your opponent plays offensive chess, what sort of opening he likes to start off. Is it, I would say, maybe the Queen's Gambit, for example, or maybe he likes to play the Sicilian defense. Intelligence practices are also used in business because business oftentimes want to figure out what the market wants, or even what their opponents, their competitors are doing. Are they going to roll out a new pricing package? What can we do, for example, therefore, to come out with a package that will sell better than what our competitors can? Our police force also use intelligence. They have networks of people who would report to them. And then these networks also help the police to keep tabs about the security status in the neighborhoods where the neighborhood police posts are. Intelligence is also used in the traditional security context and also cybersecurity to figure out what the cyber criminals or cyber perpetrators are doing. I've put on some pictures over here. I'd like to ask a few questions. I hope you guys can see my mouse cursor. Does anybody know what picture this is? The one in the middle on the top. Okay, that is a picture of a satellite that has been launched to orbit the Earth. Satellites, besides being good at carrying communications payloads, also allow countries to monitor the communication signals that are transmitted over the airwaves. Does anybody know what this is over here?
Looks like a radar plane.
Yes, it is a radar plane. In fact, it is a very powerful radar plane that is operated by the Singapore Air Force. You can see at the side of the aircraft over here, there are very flat panels, and this is where the aircraft carries certain payloads that allow them to see and monitor aircraft from really, really far away. Now, does anybody know what this picture is? Okay. Now, unlike the radar plane that you saw earlier, this aircraft over here is not flown, has no pilot inside of it. It is an unmanned aerial system. What it does is that it carries payloads such as this little optical payload at the bottom of it to monitor and scan the battlefield, and it pipes that picture back through a communications linkage so that operators in that picture below can see what's happening all around them. And in the picture below, that is a picture of some of my colleagues who were involved in counter-terrorist operations in the Middle East. Real work. right? And does anybody know what picture this is, the one on the left?
It's an aircraft carrier.
Yes, that is correct. Right. That is an aircraft carrier. In fact, that is a Russian aircraft carrier. We know that because the sensor shows is good enough to show us the ski ramp that is used at the end of the aircraft carrier. The American carriers do not use ski ramps like that. Now, and in the picture over here, you get a standard picture of how military intelligence professionals, comprising analysts and researchers, go about their jobs. Oftentimes, we will be huddled in a meeting to figure out what exactly new pieces of information is trying to tell us. And what we want to do is to use the kind of information that we have received to figure out what our opponents are up to. Okay, let me move on to the next slide. Right. So, what is my job now? Just want to say that I started out in the army during my national service. That was many years ago, and I became a military officer in the Air Force shortly after that. And presently, I'm assigned to the Digital and Intelligence Service. What you see on the right-hand side over here, that's the Army logo. I first joined the Army, then I decided to join the Air Force, and then most recently, I was assigned to the Digital and Intelligence Service. The Digital and Intelligence Service is the newest service in the Singapore Armed Forces. I think you people might be familiar with the Army, the Navy, and the Air Force. What we did in October last year was to create a whole new service called the Digital and Intelligence Service, because the digital frontier is starting to become the new frontier where countries challenge each other for supremacy, for superiority, and to advance their security interests. In the course of my career, I've filled different roles, such as that of an aircraft controller. I've been a trainer, I've been a planner, I've been a commander, a diplomat, an analyst, as well as a researcher. That's quite a lot of different roles in across a 28-year career. Now, as a military officer, my role is that of a leader. What this means is that I lead large and small teams to achieve goals. Small teams usually comprise memberships of about 5 personnel, all the way up to 15 personnel. And the largest team I've ever led was about 250 people in all. As a military officer, I've also served as a strategist. It's a big word, but what it really means is that I had to think deeply about challenges that we face and then work with my teams to develop solutions to solve real-world problems. And as a manager, it just means that I had to supervise the way how my teams go about doing the business, doing their jobs, and to implement the programs that we've put up. I was also asked to explain why I do what I do. Now, this is a bit personal. First of all, let me orientate yourself to the picture on the left. This is a very nice piece of artwork that was put up by a student as part of the Ministry of Education's National Education Program. It is an illustration of Singapore as a small island. But of course, Singapore is a bit bigger than that, but I thought it was a nice diagram. I wanted to show that this diagram is appropriate because it clearly depicts how small Singapore is, how dense we are in terms of our build-up, and the fact that we are surrounded by the sea, by waters, and have airspace all around us. What it means is that Singapore, being very small and being surrounded by sea, is also quite vulnerable to the different types of threats that can originate from the sea, the air, and even the land domains. So it is important to protect Singapore. For me personally, I chose defense because it is a calling. For me, Singapore is precious because it is my home. And I see what I do as more than just a job. It actually serves a higher purpose of protecting our way of life because we live in a troubled world. I find that it's a humbling cause because there are very few people who are entrusted with such heavy responsibilities. It is also challenging. It offers exciting challenges, where I have to use the full range of my abilities to figure out solutions, work with my teams to implement these programs. It also allows me to form deep, long-lasting friendships with like-minded professionals. And for me personally, it derives immense satisfaction from being able to see ordinary people in Singapore go about their daily lives. Now, how did I get started? As mentioned earlier, I first started out uh, after junior college because I was enlisted for national service in the army. Life is about choices, and I made the choice to do my best during my national service with the army. Uh, I was recognized because my performance was good, and because of that, I was given opportunities. And these opportunities reaffirmed my belief in my own abilities to lead, to excel, and to overcome. And I was selected to undergo training to become a commissioned military officer. It usually just means that you're entrusted. They put you through even more tough training. And what it means to be a commissioned officer is that you are recognized for your services and your abilities. And at the end of the training, the president commissions you to become an officer. And at that point in time, I made a choice to be a military professional. That means to sign on, to join the military, to work for as long as I want to in the military as a profession. And I made the choice to join the Air Force. That in turn led to new opportunities to further develop myself. I earned a scholarship to study overseas and chose to do so in the UK, where I read computer science for 4 years. The SAF, the Singapore Armed Forces, basically invested in my development by paying for my studies, my living cost overseas, as well as my salary while I was studying. Upon graduation, I was also assigned to the many different roles that I described briefly. And these were interesting assignments where I had to build capabilities such as networks of radar systems to be able to scan and monitor aircraft all around Singapore so that we can have early warning over potential threats that have ill designs towards Singapore. I was also involved in forging ties with neighboring countries to develop cooperation and partnerships. That meant I had served in Jakarta for over 3 years in a diplomatic assignment where I had to work with the Indonesian military to solve problems together. Besides that, right now, I've been posted to the DIS to look at real-world problems that we need to solve going forward. I think you might be aware that the Russia-Ukraine war has been ongoing for about 1 year now, and Russia has used a whole series of new attacks in the cyber domain to weaken Ukraine even before she launched her attack, her invasion of Ukraine in February last year. Now, these are real world security problems that we are already living in, which we are witnessing, and hence there is much demand for us to create capabilities to make sure that Singapore will never be in a weakened position where we might be threatened by potential adversaries. Now, how would I advise others who want to do the same? The first advice I can give to all of you is always to choose to be the best version of yourself. And for all the teens and tweens in this room, to really enjoy your tweens and teens. The world is troubled enough, and there are many issues out there that you will have to grapple with in the future. There's no harm in enjoying your tweens and teens right now as you seek to hone your skills, to broaden your minds, to become the best version of you so that the world is ready for you and so that you are ready to enter into the workforce. I think it is also useful and important to find time to read widely, to understand the world, as well as to sharpen your minds. For the boys and mummies in this chat room over here, I would like to advise that national service is nothing to be overly worried about. It is not just about physical prowess, but it's also about social skills. Speaking about physical prowess, I'd like to use myself as an example. I'm not the biggest size soldier there is. In fact, I'm not much taller than my wife, Jonan Sickle, but it still shows that I'm able to become a soldier and still play a part to enhance Singapore's peace and stability. I also think that national service can be an excellent time, especially when families are involved in the preparation, in helping their children, their sons especially, prepare for national service. Besides just getting out there to do physical exercises, it is also useful to talk about the different social challenges, the different challenges that Singapore faces, and even the type of people that your sons are likely to face or to meet with during the national service. Now, for the boys, you don't have to choose to become a military professional right away. In fact, national service allows you to sample a small slice of what life as a military professional tastes like. For the girls, yes, you can also join the defense sector too. In fact, I have many positive experiences serving under women officers. In fact, one of my bosses, she was a brigadier general with the Air Force before she's moved on to join to become a politician. Uh, Another example is my current boss, the head of research in Singapore. She is a woman officer as well, and she hails from the Navy. Uh, for adults who wish to join us midstream, mid-career, it is actually possible to do so. In fact, it is it is a simple matter of just going on to the website, figuring out if there is a particular vocation that you would like to do, and then submitting a registration form. For boys and girls and even parents, there are also a lot of visits that are put up by our Navy. The Navy, our Army, the Air Force, and the DIS each year. And you're welcome to visit anyway. And in fact, it will be really good if you could come down whenever you're free to just show us your support. Now, what do you need to get there? Now, this is what MINDEF and the SAF is looking for. We are basically looking for people who are committed to defending Singapore and protecting our way of life. This means that we are looking at citizens and even permanent residents who would like to join us full-time. Permanent residents, however, would need to take an oath at the age of 21 to pledge allegiance and loyalty to Singapore. Typically, the people who join us join so after junior college, after they obtain their diplomas, or after universities. This means that they are usually above 18 years of age. There are also plentiful opportunities for scholarship and sponsored education in the course of your choice. Do you think this sounds good to be true? I think for many people, they will think this sounds good to be true, but consider this. This being the military and as part of the civil service or public service means that only Singaporeans can join us. There are only about 38,000 births over the last 2 years. That includes boys and girls. What this means is that we cast our net really wide and we want to invest in every person who choose to join us. With there being 4 services to choose from the Army, Navy, Air Force, and the new DIS, there are actually many different roles that people can subscribe to. I'll show you some of these in the next slide. Now, what you see here is some of the platform capabilities that we have planned to roll out in the armed forces by 2040. You might be thinking that is, wow, 17 years from now. But in our line of business, we plan really, really far ahead because defending Singapore is serious business. There are air platforms that you can pilot or even operate if you join the Air Force. There are ships, submarines, and other maritime platforms that you can operate or even pilot if you so choose the Navy. There are also Army platforms out there that you can see in the slide below if you decide to join the Army. There are also various aspects of the jobs that are available. They are not shown on this slide. For example, in the ministry or even in the headquarters as planners, as policy, in the areas of decision making, operations, or even logistics. Now, here is a plug for the Digital and Intelligence Service. As I had mentioned earlier, the DIS was inaugurated in October 2022, and we are the SAF's fourth and the newest service. We are a bunch of historians, electrical engineers, psychologists, computer scientists, people who are well-versed in communications, and we are also leaders. We are looking for people to join us in these areas. Now, these are some of the key military vocations or traits that we have in the DIS. We have C4 experts who may serve in the cyber track. And in the cyber track, they perform security monitoring, they respond to incidents, they perform vulnerability assessments, penetration testings, they analyze malwares, and even conduct cyber forensics. Some of my C4X colleagues serve in the digital track, where they develop digital competencies, including software engineering, data sciences, artificial intelligence, and even cloud computing. My other colleagues, who are military intelligence experts, develop understanding of our regional security environment. They lead teams to uncover new threats. They conduct operations around the clock to sustain our vigilance to protect Singapore, and they exploit digital tools and sensors to defend against perpetrators who also employ digital tools to try to penetrate our systems. We also have digital and intelligence systems engineers. These are the architects that build, operate, and modify our technologies to support our operations. They manage complicated systems over the life cycles of the systems and are involved in the development to the operations and even post-delivery modifications to adapt these systems to the ever-evolving threats that we face. Okay, those are all the slides that I have. I think I might have taken up just about enough time, and I'll be very happy to answer any questions from anyone out there. Thank you.
Right, my name is Ryan, and I'm curious about anything you have to say about the use of very small UAVs in the Russia-Ukraine war.
No, Ryan, you're right. The Russia-Ukraine war has shown us just how UAVs or unmanned aerial vehicles, some people call them drones, have been employed in modern warfare. In fact, it is not difficult to operate such UAVs, and even citizens, people who are not trained in the military, the Ukrainians especially, have used such drones to monitor the movement of the Russian forces on the ground. And then they get that information. When they get that information, they transmit it or send it back to the military so that the Ukrainian military can use it to preempt where the Russian forces are moving. I hope I've explained that in clear enough terms for the younger ones to understand that. For Ryan, I also want to explain, besides micro UAVs, there are also larger UAVs that are capable of carrying more sophisticated payloads that are heavier. Usually, the smaller UAVs can only carry smaller payloads that are simpler, while the larger UAVs can carry more complex ones, including weapons. Let's see, is that Brian? Brian was asking if I pledge, does that mean I serve forever? That is a very good question. For Brian, I just wanted to say that no, it doesn't mean that I serve forever. I think it is. I think it's important for me to emphasize or to reiterate that life is about choices. The reason that a person chooses to join a job or to do something doesn't mean that he or she has to do that same thing forever. For me, it was just a very simple personal decision to continue serving in the military because the need to defend Singapore and the importance of doing so continues to resonate with me. So long as I feel that the cause resonates with me, I will continue serving. But it also means that but of course, one cannot continue serving forever, because at some point in time, I also hope to retire and spend my time doing other things that I like. And I guess when that point comes, I would know, because it would just mean that I would prefer to do something else. And it could be something related to philanthropic work, or perhaps even in the social enterprise space. Now, for Brienne, what is the most challenging thing that I've encountered while in the Army or the Air Force? Now, for Brienne, I just wanted to explain that the Air Force was probably the most challenging phase of what I had to do. There are two episodes that spring to mind. The first was after September 11th. Uh, I think most of us here are probably too young to know what September 11th is. But just to recap, basically in September 2001, a bunch of terrorists hijacked a civilian aircraft and crashed it into the World Trade Center towers in the US, in America. Life has never been quite the same again after that, because what we had to do in the Air Force was to put up plans, to deploy assets, and then to be very vigilant in watching our airspace all around the clock. That includes right from the start of the day in the morning, all the way through to night time when most people are asleep. What it means is that we constantly have to watch our radar pictures to make sure that there are no ill-intended perpetrators who threaten Singapore. So that, for me, is a challenging episode. Another challenging episode that I was involved in was a search and rescue operation. And that took place in December 2014, when a civilian airliner crashed in the Java Seas, that is in Indonesia. So within about 6 hours, we were given very short notice, and I had to I had to sail out there together with our Navy and our helicopters to conduct operations to locate the missing aircraft. And that operation was carried out under very poor sea conditions. The waves were really high. The ship, even though it was quite a big ship, was really rocking because of the bad sea state. And the weather was really bad. It was raining almost every day, and visibility was poor. That was one of the episodes that I will always remember for as long as shall live, because what we did was to locate the missing aircraft, to give families of the passengers on board the aircraft some closure. Okay, to Brian, which army is the easiest, the air, marines, or air? Okay, I think what you're asking is which is the easiest service to join. I don't think there is any one that is particularly easy to join. Each of the different services have their challenges. For the army, because we are leading, the army officers are required to lead a lot of men and operate different types of equipment out when they are deployed for operations. I do think it is probably a little bit more physically demanding to do so. For the Navy, I think the difficulties are about working in cramped quarters and cooperating with the crew that are on board a ship. Some ships can take up to about 70 over people. And for those who are operating in the submarines, I think it's even more congested, because submarines are quite small and they need to operate very stealthily. It is also important to be able to operate very quietly. For the Air Force, I think it is tough also, because the operations are complex and they take place very fast in a split second. Okay, so do I have to work long hours in the SAF? My hours are actually flexible. I typically go into work at about 8 o'clock. They are flexible in the sense that I can end by 5 o'clock, but I usually end a bit later. So it's flexible on the wrong side of the clock. But that is also because I do have heavy responsibilities, and I choose to play the role of a coach to my staff who come to me for advice, whether it is for the projects they're working on or even for professional development advice. So I tend to do that after 5 o'clock. What is my current rank? My current rank is that of senior lieutenant colonel or senior lieutenant colonel. It is not low, but it's not the highest as well. I think one thing that springs to mind when it comes to talking about rank is something that an officer wears, but I think it's also important to distinguish between rank and respect. Respect is something that a person earns through his ability and conduct to lead, to motivate, and to help his subordinates overcome the challenges or problems that we are facing together as a team. Now, that's a very good question. How much do I earn? Not high enough. I think I can always, I wouldn't mind being paid a bit higher, but I must also say that my pay is not low. In fact, I would consider it to be quite high because military officers tend to be paid a premium as compared to those who are working in the civilian sector. And this is about the job market. Remember, we can only hire Singaporeans and we cannot easily recruit people who wish to join us mid-career. What that means is that the military will need to pay a premium a bit higher than the outside market rates so that people will join us. Now, what misunderstandings do people have of my job? Now, I think, thank you, Dawn. I think that's a very good question. One of the biggest misunderstandings that people have about the Singapore military in general is that there isn't a need for such a big or powerful military. They think this way because Singapore has experienced peace and stability ever since we became independent all those years ago. Now, the last time Singapore was involved in a war would have been the Japanese occupation, and that was all the way back in 1942. So many people do tend to feel that it is therefore not a requirement for there to be a big military and that it is easy to be in the military. In fact, I would call the military victims of our own success. Why? Because I think we are good at what we're doing, and that is why potential adversaries do not take up the challenge or do not try to interfere with us. And I think it is a good thing. I think at the end of the day, the Singapore Armed Forces acts as the backstop upon which Singaporeans are able to build a good and comfortable, prosperous life and allow the country to progress. Now, which service did I serve the longest? That's for Brian. I served about 10 years in the Air Force and then about 10 years in joint intelligence before crossing to the DIS. That is because I'm an Air Force officer by choice, by choosing, and I have yet to join the new service, the DIS, on a full-time basis and to wear the trappings, the uniform that comes with the DIS. But we are rolling out a new uniform for the 4th service soon. And who knows, if I like the color of the uniform enough, I might just choose to ditch the blue of the Air Force for the gray of the DIS. What are the most important competencies that one needs to have to do what I do? Now, that's a very good question from Vivian. I think one of the important competencies is the ability to think critically. It is easy to mistake symptoms or even signs to be the root cause of the problems that we are facing. So in terms of what we're doing, I think it is important to be able to think critically to get down to the source of what exactly is a problem. That means we tend to ask difficult questions, do a bit of detective work to try to figure out exactly what is wrong, exactly what are the challenges before we propose solutions. Another competency that we need to have is the ability to work across a very vast and diverse teams. So I work with military officers, people who are like me. I also work with military domain experts, people who have deep expertise, far deeper than what I have in specific domains. Some of the domains could be cybersecurity. Some of the domains could be the use of the electromagnetic spectrum. Some other domains could be, for example, geography or history or even social anthropology. I also work with a bunch of civilians like, for example, people like Dawn or even Vivienne, your mothers, who while may not be military officers, but have chosen to work in the defense sector as executives. Some of them make the best thinkers and analysts and are able to offer different insights that military officers and experts may not be able to provide. Whoa, have I ever shot someone before? No, I've not shot anyone using a gun before, but I have perhaps retorted verbally at people whose ideas I may not agree with, all in the interest of sharpening the debate and getting down to the crux of the problem. Which service do I recommend? Well, any service actually. For me, personally, I would recommend the Air Force. That is especially if you can become a pilot. I've always wanted to fly an aircraft since I was young, but unfortunately, I was unable to do so. I also wanted to be many things when I was much younger. For example, I wanted to be an astronaut. I wanted to join the Navy and perhaps even become a submariner. But ultimately, I thought I would join the Air Force.
Or I have one, maybe a bit complex, but
Sure.
since like you've been working on the planning and diplomatic side in the military, so this is a hypothetical question, like if China and the US were to go to war over Taiwan, which side would Singapore pick? You know, considering that China has a presence in the South China Sea and that the US might want to do something about it. And since Singapore is so close to the South China Sea, so is neutrality possible? Or will we eventually have to pick a side?
Now, that is a very, very good question. I think there are many things that can take place before two countries, and in this case, the US and China goes to war. I also wanted to, first of all, warn against the fallacy of binary choices. What do I mean? First of all, I just want to say that just because A and B are fighting, it doesn't mean that I have to choose A or B. And even before that, it doesn't mean that I can only be friends with A. And if I were friends with A, it means that I cannot be friends with B or vice versa. In fact, it is important to read very critically about, read all the news articles or analytical pieces that are out there floating all over the internet quite carefully, because oftentimes some of these writings can be skewed to present one particular narrative or another. The US and China, in this case, are two of the largest superpowers in the world today. The US has a very big stake in ensuring the freedom of navigation and the choices of the free world, as she would communicate. And the free world, by the free world, I meant the countries that practice democracies. And it oftentimes contrasts the system that it leads against the system that China represents, which the US sees as illiberal and communist. I think some of your questions are really, really, really tough and really good questions. And I think that the way how these two superpowers navigate their relationship in the coming years would have big implications on not just the world, the region, especially the Asia Pacific, and also for Singapore. China obviously has a big presence in the South China Sea, but I also want to explain that the South China Sea is a very big sea, a very big body of water. Oftentimes, the parts that are being contested in the South China Sea are also not very, very close to Singapore. It can be quite far away. And if these seas are far from Singapore, they're even further for the US. And what it means is that the US will also need to continue to show wherewithal in wanting to have a sustained presence in the South China Sea to defend her interests. That is also important for the US because the regional countries who are closely watching the way how the US and China relationship pans out in the coming years will be watching very closely what the US says and, more importantly, does to back up what she says. For Singapore, I don't think we would want to be put in the position where we have to choose even before an outright conflict breaks out between the US and China. Neither does our neighboring countries like Malaysia, Indonesia, Brunei, Thailand, and all the other Southeast Asian countries. It is hence very important for us to continue to demonstrate that we have some agency. What it means is that we have the means and the drive to shape how these relationships between the superpowers play out in our region, in the Southeast Asia region. So what this means is that Singapore would need to work together with the other Southeast Asian countries to figure out what is in our best interest. And I think our best interest is not to see the superpowers come to blows, because that will really unravel the current security architecture and state of world order that has allowed all the countries in the Southeast Asia region to grow and to prosper over the last 6 decades. I hope that answers your question. Does AI pose a threat or an opportunity in my line of work? Now, that is a very good question. I'm glad you asked, because ChatGPT has been making, I would say, the headlines these days. Do I see AI as posing a threat in my line of work? Not really, because I think it is important to understand that at the end of the day, artificial intelligence is that. It is artificial. It takes a man to put in place a system that can process things fast. And in fact, because artificial intelligence, like ChatGPT, is really good at what it does, what it helps us, or even helps my teams do, is to quickly be able to generate content that allows us to understand the answers to the various questions that we might have. Some of these could be, for example, what are the foreign policy challenges of the United States? What is the United States doing with its Coast Guards or its Navy in the Asia Pacific? So oftentimes, if we do not have the answers, or if we have questions, we can just pose it to ChatGPT to get a quick first cut answer, and then overlay it with the insights, with the understanding that we already know from our research. What this means is that we can work with AI to make our work so much more effective and so much more efficient. So it is therefore not a threat, more like an opportunity to do things better.
Are you also paid higher because of the lower retirement rate age?
Oh, okay. In a way, yes. Oh, sorry, I may have missed out the question. I'm glad you asked that. There are actually various schemes by which we are employed under. For me, I'm in a scheme that allows me to work until I reach 50 years of age. It doesn't mean that I have to retire from the military or the defense sector at age 50. What it means is that at the age of 50, I can invoke certain choices that become available to me. For example, I can become a defense executive and work as a non-uniform executive with the Ministry of Defense. And that can take me all the way up to 62 years old, or even 65, depending how old the organization and how long the organization needs me for. It also means that I can also join the private sector. Now, what it means also is that in order to make the career or to make the job in the military attractive, we do tend to offer a premium for those who wish to join the military and work in a scheme where they have to retire at 50 years old. It doesn't all end at 50, however. I can share with you that the MINDEF, SAF, my employers, some of the best, is probably the only employer in the world that has a career transitioning resource office that helps to prepare our officers for retirement. What this means is that they will prepare us and help us look for jobs in various sectors that need manpower, that need our expertise or experiences, so that we can bring these and to contribute in those new sectors. Wow, there's so many more questions. I think I'll answer Brian's question next. Will Singapore ever get an aircraft carrier? The largest aircraft carriers that I know of belong to the Americans, and there are some 6,000 people working on board the aircraft carrier. That's quite a lot of people that we need to get one aircraft carrier. Now, an aircraft carrier also doesn't operate alone. It also needs to be protected by other ships, for example, so that they can protect that carrier against submarines, against other ships that may want to close in to attack that carrier. So what it means is that there will be a lot of money involved, a lot of people involved, and I don't think we can imagine a day where Singapore buys an aircraft carrier and operates one. Yes, Brian, it is the Nimitz Class 1. I think the latest is the Ronald Reagan, if I'm not mistaken. Okay, from Elisha, what do I think I can do after I retire? Now, that is a good question, Elisha, because some of the roles that I've been looking at include the corporate social responsibility space. Given what I do, given my understanding and ability to map and frame different actors, their interests, and my ability to speak different languages. I can always work with foreign firms that are looking to expand beyond Singapore into the region, so that I can bring my expertise to these firms and help them work with the government agencies over there. Other skills that I have include the ability to plan and the ability to strategize. I can also join different outfits such as the Tanoto Foundation, such as even Singtel. I can even join other research houses or agencies such as the S. Rajaratnam School of International Studies as a researcher. These are just some of the examples that I can look into. Will Singapore get a nuke then? I don't think Singapore will get a nuke, because nuclear weapons are banned and tightly controlled under the various conventions of the United Nations. Getting a nuclear weapon will almost certainly make other countries ostracize Singapore, which means we'll end up with no friends. And I don't think it is something that we want to do. In fact, I think it'll be quite sad if we ended up with no friends, because it means that nobody would stand up for Singapore if we ever face a time of need. Okay, for Dawn, what are some of my hopes for the youth of Singapore? I hope that the youth of Singapore can understand how well we have done all these years. And this was only possible because, unlike various countries, we've adopted policies that welcome foreign investment, that welcome foreigners to live and work within our means. And when these foreign companies and foreign businesses, foreign partners come to Singapore, they open up new opportunities for Singaporeans to explore, to find work, and then to prosper. In other words, our policies have allowed us to work closely with foreign partners to develop Singapore. I hope that our youth understand that these very same policies were formulated because we have very little other choices. We're not so fortunate like some other countries like Saudi Arabia or Qatar that has a lot of natural resources that we can just dig or exploit and then sell those resources so that we can become rich and so that our people don't need to work so hard. That is not quite possible, unfortunately. So what we have done was to design systems and policies so that we can grow together. This also means that we need to recognize that Singapore can be vulnerable, and there is a part in which you can play to defend Singapore and to advance our security interests. And more importantly, it doesn't need to just be in the military or the defense sphere. There are other different aspects of defense under the total defense umbrella concept that you can also be part of. Will I join politics? No, I don't think politics is for me.